Coming up today as President Park Geun-hye prepares to embark on a marathon tour of Africa and Europe, we take a closer look at what she aims to achieve. South Korea rejects North Korea's military talks proposal. Seoul says Pyongyang needs to denuclearize if it wants to hold dialogue aimed at reducing tension. Plus, veteran British filmmaker Ken Loach has won the coveted Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival for the second time. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Monday, the 23rd of May. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this afternoon, President Park Geun-hye will be making a state visit to 3 African countries this week, the first of her presidency. South Korea's foreign minister says the visits will focus on strengthening both trade and diplomatic ties, as well as issues related to North Korea. Kwon Jang-oh starts us off.
Considered a final frontier of vast untapped opportunity and resources, Africa has been receiving growing interest from world powers. Obama and Xi Jinping made state visits last year, and now South Korea's President Park is following suit. She'll first arrive in Ethiopia before making her way to Uganda and finally arriving in Kenya. She will also be the first Korean president to speak at the African Union, dubbed the African UN. She'll be looking to highlight and share the success story of Korea's development from a third world country to a leading economic player in the world.
African nations are very much aware of the economic and social struggles that Korea endured, such as colonization, war, and poverty. They have expressed that Korea is seen as a benchmark for development.
Another issue that will be covered on these state visits will be North Korea. All 3 countries have had diplomatic relations with the regime in the past. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni in particular had a close relationship at the beginning of his presidency, making 3 visits to Pyongyang in the 80s to meet with Kim Il-sung. But relations have since cooled, with Museveni becoming the first foreign head of state to visit President Park after she took office in 2013.
The issues of peace and unification on the Korean peninsula and the recent UN Security Council Resolution 2270 require help and cooperation from these countries. So far, they have been very accommodating.
After these visits, President Park will be making her way straight to France as she looks to continue expanding South Korea's influence on the international stage through summit diplomacy. Kwon Jang-oh, Arirang News.
South Korea's Prime Minister is on his way to Istanbul for the inaugural World Humanitarian Summit. Hwang Kyo-an is expected to convey the South Korean government's stance regarding sexual equality and human rights issues. Organized by UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon, the 2-day summit will be attended by some 5,000 participants, including heads of state, diplomats and aid workers, to discuss ongoing international humanitarian issues. Now, during his stay in Turkey, he's just left Saudi Arabia over the weekend. Prime Minister Hwang is also scheduled to meet with the UN chief for talks on various domestic and international issues. South Korea has rejected North Korea's offer to hold inter-Korean military talks, saying steps towards dismantling the North's nuclear weapons program should come first. Seoul's defense ministry says it sent a reply to Pyongyang on Monday expressing regret on how the North offered talks without mentioning its stance on South Korea's continuous calls for denuclearization. The ministry reiterated that the escalated tension on the peninsula is the result of North Korea's nuclear and missile provocations. North Korea sent a notification to the South on Saturday, saying it wants to ease tension by building up trust through military talks. South Korea's top 3 shipbuilders laid out their plans for restructuring over the weekend. After digesting the proposals, experts have been having their say about the best course of action to take. Hwang Ji-hye with the details.
To bail out or to downsize? That's the question that remains over the government's corporate restructuring drive, especially in the shipbuilding industry, a once golden sector that's been struggling to cope with slowing global demand and low oil prices. After the nation's three largest shipbuilders, Hyundai Heavy Industries, Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering, and Samsung Heavy Industries submitted their restructuring plans to creditors over the weekend, some experts say the industry has room to revive itself and that plans have to focus on riding out the current slump. The firm's restructuring schemes largely include layoffs and multi-billion-dollar asset sales. They say that if the companies can weather through the next 2 to 3 years, they could again stand as industry leaders, stressing that drastic job cuts could deteriorate their competitive edge. But this is under the assumption global demand will recover in the coming years. Some analysts even doubt that Korean shipbuilders will start posting profits when demand picks up, as they've been posting such massive losses and will do so for the next couple of years. They say the company's offshore energy projects definitely need restructuring since they've been identified as the main cause of the trio's swelling losses. 황지혜, Arirang News.
Now, former Oxy Korea CEO John Lee, who's now the head of Google Korea, will be summoned for questioning on Monday afternoon over the toxic humidifier sterilizer scandal. Lee is the first foreign chief executive called in by prosecutors to answer questions about the company's toxic sterilizers that killed or seriously injured hundreds of people in Korea. The former CEO, who was at the Korean branch from 2005 to 2010, is expected to be quizzed on his involvement, including whether he pushed ahead with sales of the product in question, despite civil complaints regarding the side effects. Lee was the chief executive of Oxy Korea when sales of the company's sterilizers were actually at their peak. The prosecution is also trying to find out if Oxy's London headquarters could be held accountable for any involvement. South Korea and 6 Central American nations will start a 4th round of negotiations for a free trade agreement from this Monday. The talks will take place until Friday with El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama and Costa Rica, and focus on issues regarding products, customs and investment. Now, Seoul is seeking new markets for its competitive industries such as auto and textiles, while promoting the liberalization of services and investment. The talks began in September of last year. The 6 countries make up the 5th largest market in Central and South America in terms of combined GDP. Trade volume with South Korea has nearly doubled in the past 10 years, reaching $4.1 billion in 2015. The percentage price change of Korea's benchmark Kospi has been stagnant for more than 1 month now. As doubts over returns rise, there are worries the local market could fall into a long-term rut. Kim Hae-sung has the details.
The monthly price change of Korea's Kospi index for May stood at around 2%, the lowest it has seen in 23 years. The monthly price change, which is also called stock volatility, indicates the degree of fluctuation, and some investors are calling the phenomenon of the Kospi being stuck between the 1900 and 2000 level box P. Since March, the Kospi moved more than 1% on just 3 trading days. The daily trading value also dropped 17% year-on-year. Experts cite exporters' weakening competitiveness as the main reason. Traditional drivers of the local market, electronics, semiconductors, and shipbuilders have been losing momentum. New growth industries like cosmetics and biotech are not big enough to replace them, so the Kospi is being weighed down. External factors such as low oil prices, a possible U.S. rate hike, and the uncertainty over Brexit are also making investors jittery. Amid growing internal and external uncertainties, more investors are looking to equity-linked securities whose return is determined by the linked stock's price. Hence, investors inject more money when the support line falls to 1900 and pulls out money when the resistance line draws near 2000, creating the so-called box P phenomenon, which is likely to continue for a while. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Korea's biosimilar drug market is expected to nearly double in size in the coming years, thanks to government support and the company's vigorous investment plans. The Korea Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association estimates the volume of the market to grow to $126.7 million by 2019, from the 67.6 million recorded in 2013. Now, currently, 12 categories of biosimilar medicine are in clinical trials. Local pharmaceutical firms are hoping to become the next Celltrion, which successfully entered the US market with FDA approval for its Remsima drug, developed to treat patients with autoimmune diseases. The company brings in around $2 billion every year from the American market alone. A volcano in Costa Rica that's been spewing clouds of ash and smoke since last week has sparked a health emergency, with hundreds of residents crowding hospitals with breathing and skin problems. The 3,300-meter Turrialba volcano is located just 30 kilometers from the country's capital, San Jose. According to local media, the volcanic activity began last Wednesday, with the first eruptions recorded on Friday morning. It caused thick clouds of ash and smoke to rise, as you can see in the picture there, 3 kilometers into the sky, turning the sky grey and causing ground temperatures to actually drop a few degrees Celsius as well. Local authorities have set up a 5-kilometer perimeter around the volcano, which is located in the so-called Ring of Fire. Meanwhile, another place in the Ring of Fire, there's been an eruption at a volcano in Western Colombia. It happened on early Sunday, and it forced the closure of a regional airport, causing delays. Now, on to the latest on the hunt for the EgyptAir plane that crashed last Thursday with 66 people on board. Egypt has announced the deployment of a submarine to scour the Mediterranean for the flight's black boxes. Hwang Ho-jun reports.
No signs of survivors. Search and rescue teams have so far recovered debris, including suitcases, life vests, seat covers, and even body parts. However, the black box, which could hold the key to ascertaining the cause of the crash of the ill-fated flight MS-804, remains missing. Following a moment of silence to mourn the victims, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi made his first public statement since the crash at a press conference on Sunday local time. He announced the deployment of a submarine in an effort to speed up the recovery of the black box from the plane. Brought in from Egypt's offshore oil industry, the submarine is capable of reaching 3,000 meters below the surface. French investigators also confirmed reports on the same day of multiple smoke detection warnings sent by the plane before it disappeared from radar. With speculation on the cause of the crash ranging from terror to a mechanical error, the Egyptian president urged the media to refrain from jumping to any conclusions.
I wish to take this opportunity to convey to both Egyptian and foreign media that we are considering all scenarios at the moment. Once the findings have been revealed, these findings will be made public to all people.
The plane was en route from Paris to Cairo and 16 kilometers into Egyptian airspace before vanishing from radar around 2:30 a.m. local time last Thursday. Reports confirm the plane made a sudden 90-degree swerve to the left and dropped 7,000 meters in altitude before swerving 60 degrees to the right and finally disappearing. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Now, British veteran director Ken Loach has been awarded this year's Palme d'Or Award at the Cannes Film Festival. Korean director Park Chang-uk's The Handmaiden came home empty-handed. Kim Mo-kyun reports.
Ken Loach was awarded this year's Palme d'Or as his latest social realist drama I, Daniel Blake took the coveted Best Picture award. This marks the second time the 79-year-old has taken the top prize at Cannes among a total of 9 directors who have won the prestigious award twice. Loach won his first Palme d'Or 10 years ago with The Wind That Shakes the Barley. Set in Newcastle, Loach's I, Daniel Blake depicts the story of a sick carpenter who forms a friendship with a young single mother as they both struggle with Britain's social security system that makes life harder for the lower classes. Loach said he hopes the film makes people think about what he calls the cruel austerity program in England.
I don't know. I mean, I hope they were touched by it. I hope they felt like we did, that the bureaucracy, the state bureaucracies now are cruel and they humiliate people and they come from the program of austerity that is being forced on people now.
The Grand Prix Award went to Canadian director Xavier Dolan, whose film It's Only the End of the World received negative feedback when it was screened to journalists during the festival. The Best Director was awarded to France's Olivia Assayas for Personal Shopper and Romania's Christian Mungiu for Baccalaureate. However, Park Chan-wook's The Handmaiden, also known as Agashi in Korea, did not make it onto the list of winners this year, despite high expectations. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
Now, Korea's southern port city of Busan, which itself hosts an international film festival, is attracting more foreign tourists than ever this year. According to the city's travel trend report released on Monday, the number of foreign visitors during the first quarter was 576,000, nearly 30% more than the same time last year, with more than 180,000 travellers. The Chinese were the biggest group of tourists to the city. Extended cruise tours and more international flights to Busan are said to be behind the increase. An exclusive shopping block is opening at Busan's international market, and more translators have been drafted into major tourist spots to accommodate the growing number of foreign travellers. Well, that's all we have for now on this Monday lunchtime here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you, as always, for watching. We'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. So until then, goodbye.